Six class series of Grow Your Own, presented by the Master Gardeners who assist Texas A&M Extension, AgriLife Extension. The classes are designed to educate participants on creating a productive edible garden and a home landscape. Today's class is on warm season vegetables, herbs, and our speaker is Lauren Barton. Lauren Barton has been a Fort Bend Master Gardener since 2006. She's a member of our Master Gardener Help Desk team, or has been a member since 2015. She helped implement the Fort Bend County Gel Female Gardening Program from 2017 to 2020. She worked at Enchanted Gardens from 2015 to 2022, and she is retired hotel corporate sales director for the Four Seasons and Ritz-Carlton hotels in Houston. She's been married for 35 years, has 3 children and 2 grandchildren. By the way, I'm a grandfather as of yesterday.
Jody? Yeah. Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to go through some slides here that Larry Lessing has made. He made this presentation, so we may skip through some or highlight others, so just bear with me. Feel free to take pictures or tell me to move out of the way. I can only move so far because we're taping this, so I can also duck. So just...
And I forgot to mention, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you're welcome to ask them. Just raise your hand, and I will bring you the mic so that everyone can hear the question.
Okay, so this is just up there just for a heads up, but I guess the main thing would be to make sure your phones are either on airplane or turned off or vibrate or whatever. And that includes my own. So, okay, as I mentioned, it's great to take pictures of the slides if you want to go back and review. And these are just a few of the definitions. I don't know, in case you need them, I mean, like if you want to know what a nematodes are, or the term fallow, anything like that. Larry's an engineer, so there's a lot of information in here that you might, I'm not going to read that whole list of links. Okay. So what we're going to be covering today, I'm going to be adding one topic as far as the vegetable goes, but we have tomato tips here, but there is nothing on tomatoes, so I'll just kind of wing that and we'll proceed on. I don't think we're going to go great through crop rotation, but it will definitely apply in regards to zucchini. And then you're more than welcome after this presentation to go out those doors, and if you want to go check out our demonstration gardens. We just planted, I just found out we just planted our tomatoes that are left over from our sale. They'll be in there doing their thing. So this is definitely something this is very beginner level. I do not know what the level I'm talking to here. So you definitely want to, I think number one is a spot that has sun. If you want, if it has a little afternoon shade, that's fine. But who's going to do the work? If you're going to do it in a container, that's easier. If you're going to do it in a bed, that's great too. If you are going to do above ground planting, I would suggest that your beds be no wider than 4 feet. Reason being, you can be as long as you want, but 4 feet, because that's basically an arm's length from both sides. That makes it easier so you don't get on your ground and start compacting it. So just kind of think ahead on some of these things. We are going to have some varieties that will come in each of these divisions of, but there's so many out there that work in this part of Texas. In case y'all didn't know, we are zone 9, specifically 9B. But if you plant things that are zone 9, you're going to be fine. And then this is, so just in case you don't know, in Texas it has a different designation, but nationally we're zone 9. Oh, I think I just turned it off. Okay, so the seasonality of vegetables. We are really great in this area that our seasonality lasts a really long time. The only time that it's really cut short or diminished is when we get into the June, July, August. And that's gonna come into play more with your vegetables that pretty much just do one big harvest, such as determinate tomatoes. We'll go into the detail later. Everybody with me so far? Okay. Now this is the growing season. This is a good picture to take, but you can also easily find it online. So the green is what you're looking for, and this is talking basically from seeds. I really suggest that if you were going to do tomatoes, I think you have a really great chance if you start them inside with either grow lights or a really bright window, whatever you have. The idea behind the tomatoes for this time of year is to get them really well established in your pot, your garden, before the heat comes. That's the main thing with that. And once again, we can go through detailed ideas on every plant that grows here, which I'm pretty sure everybody's computer literate. Okay, so this whole list, add tomatoes. If you're going to take a picture of it, edit it and put in tomatoes. Okay, so okra. So that's Boone Holiday, our county agent. It would have a video with it. For some reason it's not on here, but I kept the picture because it gives you a great idea of how big okra plants can grow. Now you might want to take about 6-8 inches. I'm not sure how deep that bed is, but they're tall. These are some suggestions. They're open pollinated, which means they make a blossom and nectar, bee, caterpillar, something has to play with it. They can grow really long, the actual vegetable, but you want to get them when they're about 3 or 4 inches. And it's great for canning. They're more tender. They're not as fibrous. He made a great idea of suggesting some protection because it's sticky. They're a little pokey. So, and they grow for a long time. So, I don't know how many people you have in your household, but usually one plant will do fine. And as far as the different ones that they suggest, I think they're all great. The burgundy to me is fun just because it is kind of a purpley color, maroon color, but it does bleach out when you boil it. Now, sweet potatoes, as you can see from that top picture, will spread. So unlike a potato plant that you would put into an area and it grows, and as you pile the dirt up, it grows from there. Sweet potatoes are going to spread. So wherever that vine lands with its little node, it's going to put roots and grow a potato there. So this can be great if you want to really work on on water conservation. Because as you can see, it covers. So you can grow things out of it and between it that'll get taller and do just fine. But there's a program that the Native American Indians came up with called the Three Sisters. Is anybody familiar with that? Okay. Well, the Three Sisters, I think they don't really know where it started, but they think it was probably in the southwest part of the United States. So water was very special. So when they did the Three Sisters, they did the corn, so you got your height, did green beans, that wrapped up the corn to give it stability and structure, and then they did squash or any type of plant under it for water retention. So you can kind of play with that idea. They use corn, green beans, or beans, and squash, but sweet potatoes work fine. I've never hilled them up. I've just let it go. Just let it do its thing. And now eggplant, this is Larry's eggplant. I've been growing it for years and I've never gotten it that tall or with so much on it. So they can produce all the way till November. It's really when the first cold snap below freezing comes. Our cold snaps, as far as that type of temperature, usually doesn't hit till February. My favorite are the Asian, just the long one. That's the American Beauty, usually is with the one you'll see in the grocery store. I found that to be, it's delicious, but you really do have, the skin is tough. So I'm kind of whipping through this. Everybody doing okay? Okay. Now watermelon, in your melons. I'd wait till you have your garden planted, which most of us will by this time, and then let that take over. But here's a little trick with melons. A watermelon, I got more into this when I was doing the work at the Fort Bend County Jail, because we had so much land. It can spread out in all its different branches, well up to 10 to 12 feet. But here's the trick. If you've got a watermelon growing way at the end from the mother plant, it's smaller and it's waterier and has less flavor. So in working with the women, we came up and did a little trick. And after it gets 3 good blossoms on it, snap the vine off. Don't let any more grow. You can still end up with 15 watermelons, or cantaloupe, or honeydew, whatever you want to have. But it makes those that are left on the vine grow big, and as they should to their size. So they will stay more flavorful and there'll be healthier fruit. And if you're a home gardener, not working on 2 acres like we were, it also kind of keeps it a little bit more under control. And really the best way, I mean, you want to rotate your melons, but obviously if you keep rotating, you're going to twist that vine. So I suggest putting some straw, hay, something under it so it doesn't sit in the soil. Because it says here that, pretty much when they're ready, when they're bottom, yellow on the bottom part, but you want to try and rotate it as much as you can.
Question.
Yes.
Someone suggested wrapping the vine, as it grows rather than letting it go to.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, definitely.
And that works, okay.
Yeah. But I would still stick with the 3 per vine. You can run your own experiment. This was an experiment. We went from, I think the most we one time had was 7, and we started backing it off. Because we kept waiting for that one way out there that was 7 to get to the size of the others, and it didn't, but it took the strength and nutrition out of the mother plant. So, yeah, did everybody understand what she asked? Okay, or hear it? Okay. So once again, this is some more information that you can go and look at all the different varieties and stuff. But when you look up these individual plants, be sure to put in, Zone 9B, Zone 9, Texas, and it will give you the ones.
I have a question about the cantaloupe melons. Where on the?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. For the melons, when you snap it off after the 3 blossoms, where on the vine is
Kind of in between.
Do you need to do like about the leaf or?
You want it, the leaves are going to be kind of near it, so you're going to get where it's the space in between. And if you see a blossom, you can go on and clip it off that's further away. What you're helping the plant do is keep as much of its strength and the nutrition it's getting out of the soil and put it into the fruit. It stretches it out and it's more energy to get down to the end of that vine. Good question.
I have a question. You're saying clip them off after 3 blossoms. In my experience, you have male flowers coming first. If you were to clip them off after the first 3.
I'm sorry, I didn't say flower. What I meant is once the watermelon starts growing.
Right.
Because, yes, that's kind of like zucchini. You got male and female flowers. So, yeah, this is after you see it growing.
Can that vine be propagated? The rest of the vine?
I've never done that. I'm sure it could be, but I don't know. Yeah, if he's in today. Yeah. So, and then of course on your cantaloupes, once again, there's different sizes and stuff. So this is an experiment that I did, and it worked really well for the jail. Try it in your own garden, or let it go and see what happens. The circling was a great idea to keep it contained.
Lauren, can I say something about cantaloupes?
Sure.
So, one thing I've learned, major difference between watermelons and cantaloupes is watermelons will not ripen off the vine, but cantaloupe will. So you can harvest your cantaloupe a little bit unripe, but it's still a little bit green. Once it starts to kind of turn that yellow-brown color, you know, if you leave them too long, if you let cantaloupes get really ripe on the vine, they'll rot real quick. You can harvest those and just put them on, you know, a counter or something inside at room temperature. In about a week, they'll ripen right up. The waterlings will not.
That was great, thanks, Jen. Pumpkins, I have found, because it says 110 to 115, it ranges, but you want, let's say if you wanted them for Halloween, count back, because they need to harden off, they need to season up, and that takes about 2 weeks. So, your planting time, you need to adjust to when it's going to be ready to either be eaten or a jack-o'-lantern. The small ones, the little sugar babies, delish. I love it. And kind of the same thing applies to this. I haven't done the experiment, but I would think that it might be the same way as it is with melons, that you're gonna, you know, be able to grow those big ones, or to the size that it should be, if you help the plant a little bit without enormous production. Now, cucumbers are a great thing because they grow for a very long time with us. It's kind of back to, you know, the eggplant, like going till November. There's lots of different kinds. Some are, like, there's not up here, but it's a great one. It's called the homemade pickle. Hopefully everybody knows that pickles aren't what grow on the vine. It's the cucumber and then you pickle it. So you want to look, it depends what you want to do with it. Do you want a large one that you can have in a salad, or are you using it for juicing, or do you want a can? So then look at something that is harvested and is best at about 3 to 4 inches. Unless you're making, like, you know, spears or something, or chips of pickles. These on the right look like they're straight 8s because they're kind of bumpy and they look long. Some have little, it's kind of like a little prickly fur on them. Perfectly fine, you grab it and then just kind of use your hand with a glove and just slide it off. You can do it with your raw hands, I mean, they're not stickers. And I usually like to plant these in kind of like in a 2-week separation, because so that you can have a constant harvest coming on once they get going. Great for trellising. Oh, one thing I didn't add on the cantaloupes, they can be trellised. I've done that in my garden. And then what I do is just go get some hose at the grocery store and then just either drop them in there or make a sling and just tie it. And then that way, when it expands or when it rains, it doesn't sit in water, it's off the ground, and the hose is strong enough to hold them up until maturity. So I found that works as a great system, especially if you've got a limited garden. I would not recommend cucumbers, your melons, or anything for pots because of their need to tray.
So, didn't get it. How do you do the hose? How do you?
Well, there's it's been a long time. I gave up hose with my last child in 1991, so I don't know what they're doing now. But you know, there's like the kinds that were like the knee highs, so you can kind of drop it in there and then tie the top of it to your trellis. Yeah, or you can get the regular kind and then just make slings. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Now, pepper plants, kind of like tomatoes, hopefully are already in your garden. Now, I have found that the hotter, the spicier the pepper, the longer it takes to grow. So I usually have a really great harvest of habaneros, well, these aren't on here because I like it hot, and that usually comes in about August. But sweet bells and other milder peppers, really, you know, cayenne, they really start coming on. In my experience with sweet bells, don't expect the size that you get at the grocery store because they're not shot up with a bunch of hormones. They're going to be, I don't know, about the size of my double 2 fists here, or smaller. And some people say plant it next to your hot pepper plants, then the bell peppers become spicy. I haven't had that experience, but I've tasted other people say, yep, I planted it right next to my cayenne plant. And it was a kind of a little bit of a spicy pepper, but I liked it.
Were you saving your seed?
It what?
Were you saving your seed?
No?
If you have a hot pepper going next to a bell pepper, they intercross about 60% of the time.
So that's where it gets the spices, if
Yeah.
you save this, okay.
Cross-pollination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cross-pollination.
Right. They self-pollinate a certain percentage, but it's a mixed thing. So-
Well, maybe that's why I haven't had
And
a
so when the
spicy
seed
bell
companies
pepper.
are producing seed for those hot peppers and non-spicy peppers, there is a certain distance that they're required to plant them apart in order to ensure that there's not cross-pollination.
Interesting, okay, well,
What's the best fertilizer to fertilize those? Is it ones that you buy at the store with the, that you hook up with the hose and spray it, or is it granules?
well, my favorite all over fertilizer is, it's, you know, seaweed or, but it comes from the ocean. So, and it's a concentrate, you mix, I think it's 2 ounces to the gallon, and I just I do everything with it. Now, I do something a little bit extra with tomatoes, because they're high, they need a lot of fertilizer. But, on anything really in your garden, you can do anything that's got fish, seaweed, anything, emulsion of any type. But you can use others. I mean, I tend to be more organic in my gardening, and I think most people start out to try and do that until they see their first bug, and then it's chemical warfare. So,
Lauren, can I add something to that question about fertilizers?
yeah.
So, the biggest thing all of your vegetable crops are gonna need is nitrogen. So, and like Lauren was saying, if you're gonna use, organic fertilizers, there's lots of options like seaweed, there's bone meal, which you can put on as a granular powder, or you can dissolve it in a sprayer. You've got Miracle-Gro. But the biggest thing is high nitrogen during the growing season. As far as the other macronutrients, phosphorus, potassium, you really don't necessarily need to add a balanced fertilizer like a triple 13 or a 20-20-20 unless your soil requires it. So it's critical that you get a soil test done before you start doing other things. But nitrogen during the growing season, almost all your vegetable crops are going to need some boost of nitrogen. So those organic fertilizers that are primarily nitrogen sources are a really good option. Would you agree with that, Lauren?
To a certain extent, because then the nitrogen, which you're going to end up boosting, is more green growth and less.
That's true, yes.
What about 10-10-10?
What about what?
10-10-10?
Well, once again, I mean, it all breaks down to basically 1-1-1. You know, if you have a 2, 6, 9, you know, it's just going to be the percentage that's within that mix. But basically, when you're starting out now, nitrogen's great. I had to add nitrogen to my soil. I had it tested for it. And that's going to happen before it's going to happen before every season in this area. You're going to need nitrogen. But if you keep doing it, like I made the mistake one year I had some alfalfa left over from a border at my stables. And so I made alfalfa tea. Worked like a champ. But I was in a freaking jungle. I mean, my plants were green and gorgeous, and luckily the tomatoes turned red so I could see it in there. And I was just like, whoa, I've done plenty. So, as Jody said, be careful with the nitrogen once they start blooming. Once you start blooming, your other two are going to be in there, your phosphate, your phosphorus, and your potassium. But,
Good point. Too much nitrogen once they start setting fruit and blooming,
Yeah.
it just sends more of the energy to the leaves, and they don't set fruit. They don't bloom as well.
yeah, so you'll have a green
It's like it's like with onions. You know, you stop about February, you stop fertilizing nitrogen so that they will bulb up. You have questions?
Yeah, regarding fertilizers, so there is something called microlife,
Excellent.
so you get a comment.
All right, excellent. So do 2 things. And it kind of also applies to Blenya, which is an excellent source. But it has blood in it. So animals, rodents might come and dig it up, and same with the microlife. Humans can eat microlife. You wouldn't want to, but you can, it won't kill you. But so do the bunny rabbits and squirrels.
So I heard, once you start microlife, which is organic, they say you should not bring in medical grown, that kind of, don't mix those two. You
Right.
stick with one or the other, is what I heard. Is that-
Well, as I said earlier, I'm a big believer, I love microlife, but, and so I don't use Miracle Grow. I've just never considered about doing both because I don't do Miracle Grow at all. So, but there's nothing wrong with it in case there's somebody here from Miracle Grow, but I just don't do it.
What does Epsom salt do?
It adds magnesium to your soil. It's not salt. We do not, it's not scientifically proven, so it's not something that we talk about because we talk mostly science-based. But I've heard a lot of success with it, mix it with, forgot what that syrup is. Molasses, yeah. And, then add something else, get your rainwater, collect it, stir it up. I'm laid back, let's do what you want.
Earthworm castings? Earthworm castings.
Oh, worm castings are great, but I have failed at vermiculture. I keep drowning them. So, I have, so your squashes. I mean, we all know about them. They're great. It's definitely a summer. They're easy to freeze and put up. They're easy to pickle if you go that way. Be aware, you don't need a whole lot of zucchinis in particular for a family because it's a high producer. You will be making zucchini bread out your ear if you put more than one plant. But what is interesting about zucchini, and it does happen to yellow squash. I think that's the next video. Okay, that's Larry. That's the guy who put this together. And we'll get back to that squash. I'm not sure where that picture's there. Okay, this is what happens, and it's happened to me. It's the squash vine borer beetle. It's actually a moth. That's what the mama looks like. She flies around at night, comes and lays her eggs when you can't find her, and then the larva comes out, and your plant by now has had blossoms on it. It looks great, it's vigorous, it's green, and then all of a sudden, it just dies. The little baby fruits all dry up, vegetables, all dry up. And if you'll go back to where the plant is, well, that's a worst case scenario. But you'll see what he's calling frass. It looks like sawdust, like somebody did a little, piece of wood. And if you want to, you can get a scalpel or a very fine knife, split it up, you'll find a little wound, you can go bandage it up, play doctor, get another plant. It might work, it may not. Some people have put copper around the base to send out, some sort of vibe like don't come here. But it's hard to know what's going on. But once that moth knows that this is where you plant, you probably won't get a third season. It will have already put its eggs in the ground. So you've got to move that zucchini. This year will be my first time in 3 years to plant a zucchini plant. So
I have a question.
sure.
Can you put a penny with the seed? Would that work?
It's not scientifically proven. It's kind of like the copper. It's kind of like, sometimes she asked if you can put a penny with the seed when it's in the ground. I'm all for trying it. Try it out, see if it works. But it's not proven.
Better use an old penny because the new ones have very little copper.
The penny that you have, you might want to say it's worth money.
I know.
Is this peculiar just to zucchini or also yellow squash?
It happens to both, but it's happened to me consistently with zucchini.
Pumpkins? Have you experienced that?
Well,
with
makes sense,
pumpkins?
it's a squash.
Yeah.
So is there any preventive, like BT or something you can spray?
Not
to
really.
repel that?
I'm sure there's something out there that might work, but right now, because it's planted, usually during the mother moth plants her eggs, or laser eggs at night. So unless you're out there,
Yeah,
you got a net,
yeah,
you catcher, you know.
yeah.
So that's why you have to move it around.
Yeah, one thing some people do is floating rows cover nets,
Oh.
insect nettings. So when you plant, as soon as you plant, you cover the whole row
Right.
or the plant.
That's a great idea.
Raised beds.
Yeah.
With the netting, you gotta make sure it's completely around the ground. That stops the moth from actually getting to the plant land where it's in.
I've also heard wrapping the vines in foil,
Yep. Once again,
a lot of work.
yeah, and remember, you gotta get it down under the soil and kind of flare it so that it confuses the little larva. But that's, you know, that's a Pinterest thing. There's lots of good things on Pinterest, but I can't support everything that they say about the plants. So here's the Tatumi. And they're great. They're like little, really big eggs. And the skin is soft. I mean, it's like a zucchini, but it has a little bit more resistance. And it's an heirloom, so you can save the seeds. And I'm not sure what that top picture's for, but you know, I guess how the vine works. It's kind of a mixture as far as the growing habits between the squash and the way the sweet potato grows. Because wherever that set of roots, that's where our squash is going to grow. So your winter squashes. And we're going to assume that the vine borer beetle, I know from my own experience, seems to prefer the zucchini, but it's all squashes that this can happen to. Yeah. So,
Although loofah, they don't like.
true. So, I don't grow these. I buy them. I love them just because I've got a small garden. You know, and you're going to start these, as you see, you know, 4 months out, so there you are with stuff still left over from your summer garden.
So I've grown all of these guys, and I've been so hooked and excited about baby squash. And then I mean, I'm excited to learn about this evil orange moth gizmo. But what actually works? What scares off the moth? Because I appreciate you mentioned Pinterest has some nice.
Well, I think Jody that was a great suggestion about once you planted it, lay a net, not a bird net because those are big squares, but you know, a finer one made of cloth, and just cover it at the beginning after you plant it. But really, the best one that's been proven is rotation. Is move the crop around.
So lay a net on the ground.
I mean, you'll see a picture here. He's got that Tatumi squash literally growing through his lawn. He, you know, channeled out a piece of raw earth and just did it there. It's just growing in the middle of his lawn in his backyard.
Question?
Yes.
Does the squash work similar to the watermelon, where if you shorten it, it grows healthier and bigger and better?
I'm going to have to assume that it does, but I don't know because I haven't done it.
Everyone have a question?
But one thing about, especially your winter squashes, is that once they're off the vine, they last a really long time. That tough, waxy skin. So just put it in a dark place. I mean, you can be eating that homegrown, you know, butternut now that you harvested back in November. Anybody? Yes.
With regard to butternut, we were in a different state. We let our butternut squashes grow 12 to 15 feet long, and we were getting very large fruit at the end of them.
Yeah, and the larger, the less savory they are. They get a little thready. They get a little, did you find it to get a little stringy?
I guess on a winter squash, I didn't detect any difference. So
Okay.
maybe it was we weren't doing a comparative study.
Okay.
We picked them all and they all went in the same box.
So I have never grown these. I'm familiar with them because all beans are a great nitrogen fixer. So for us, with a majority of clay soil, it's really good because not only does it get down in there and break up clay, but it's adding nitrogen back into the clay. Even if you've got a great, fabulous raised bed, chances are we're going to need nitrogen.
I grew this last year.
Yeah.
And I attract a lot of wasps. How can I prevent the wasps?
Wasps?
Wasps,
Yeah. You can try the vegetable cover over it if you wanted to, but their nest is way up in the sky, under a tree, under the house leaf or something like that. So it's kind of hard to, unless you're sitting out there and just gonna zap it as you see them.
Well, the wasps are probably a good thing.
Yeah, but they're
a pollinator, and they're also a predator for pests, other pests.
And there is another wasp called I think it's called a predatory wasp. And so when you see your hornworms that are usually around the tomatoes, so it's a little bit earlier in the season, they'll lay their eggs in that caterpillar. So you might see some green caterpillar with white things sticking out of their back. They're gonna die because that's the baby predatory wasp that you want growing. It's kind of gross though.
So I grew up a whole bunch of these last year, and I had an aphid infestation. Like, I had never seen aphids before. Do ants get excited, or ant part of that? But like, I tried to think of why in the heck would an aphid be excited about my black eyed peas?
Aphids suck the juice out of every plant, but yes, aphids suck the juice. Ants harvest aphids and take them underground while they're still alive and make them slaves.
Yeah, so I need to go after the ants that are living nearby. What do I do to get rid of the aphid? How do you kill the ecosystem?
Well, the aphids are usually a great blast of water, but you got to do it under the leaf because that's where they hang out. It's going to knock them off. They're a bunch of weenies. They're not going to try and climb back up. They're not that strong. Ants like them because, like I said, they harvest them, take them alive down under the ground and they love the excrement that comes out of aphids, and they feed that to their baby ants. It's not scientific, but I use orange oil for my ants in my garden.
But what about
Aphids, blast them with the water. If that doesn't work, no, that works. I mean, it does. No, with the hose. I mean, you really want it, yeah. But if that doesn't work, I recommend neem oil.
Ladybug.
And of course, ladybugs too. They will eat them.
If it's one of these bendable things and it's on the top, I've actually put it in slightly soapy water, rinsed it up and let it go and it helps.
Well, that's insecticidal soap.
Right.
So that's
Or I've actually put neem oil
yeah.
in the
Dawn,
same-
once again, Dawn comes to the rescue.
Yeah.
It's not only cleaning baby ducks in your dishes, it acts as a surfactant to your chemicals. Does any other?
So you talked about the orange oil for your ants.
Mhm.
So do you just mix that with water into the soil?
Yes.
Or do you
Oh no, into a can of water.
a can of water?
And
Did
then
everyone hear the question?
Yes. So I asked about the orange oil to help control the ants around the plants. And so she was saying that you mix it in with water
Mhm.
and then pour that in the soil.
read the directions, but yeah, it's a great thing. Two reasons why. One, it kills the ants immediately, mostly because it suffocates them.
the A&M website has a recipe for like fire ant death, and it includes a little bit of detergent and maybe a little bit of something else. And that recipe is that like follow those instructions, and it's exciting. It's very rewarding.
Well, that seems to be our biggest problem is the ants.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So let's stay on topic and keep moving.
One more question.
Well, I was gonna share, we had an anthologist, speak at the Sugar Land Garden Club this week, and I'll give you his contact, but he really said, to know what kind of,
Okay, we're gonna do that after this lecture.
okay. Cause and he did recommend boiling water.
So at this time of year, unlike your big onions that you think of, your slicers, multiplying onions, these guys are great. So a lot of times they're known as green onions in the grocery store, but these will be bigger and a little bit stronger. But they're so much fun because you plant one and it makes little babies. So have y'all ever seen, has anybody ever seen these?
Yeah, I grow them.
Yeah, they're fabulous.
Where do you buy them? They're called multiplying.
You can buy them probably at most of your nurseries, not to be confused with big box stores, like Home Depot, Lowe's, and stuff like that. So we're going to be moving into herbs. This is Larry. I thought it was interesting because of how he separated his container. Because some of your herbs, like oregano, will spread. They're not going to root anywhere else, but they just spread. So that he's got basil at, say, bottom third to the left, thinking that's oregano, and then parsley at the top. So I don't know why. It's a funny thing about this area of Texas. All the sales go on for 2-for-1s and stuff like that with cilantro and parsley. Cilantro and parsley will not grow in the summertime. They love this time of year. My parsley's even taken a little bit of frost on it. Bounced right back. So for us, growing cilantro and parsley are more in kind of the October. Well, mine are still growing right now. Cilantro, if you put it in a bed, I'm not so sure about a pot, but it reseeds itself. So you can buy 1 or 2 plants, and see it come when the cool weather comes. I think in the background that might be okra, I can't tell. So in the world of basil, it has grown incredibly. So you have the Genovese, which is what we get in the grocery store. I mean, you've got lemon, lime, tulsi, and within tulsi, which is the heirloom sacred basil, there's 3 or 4 or maybe 6 different kinds there. And it will last a long time, unlike regular basil, which as soon as it gets chilly, that basil's the biggest weenie. It does. Unless you have it inside in a southern window. I agree with the mint, because I have done it many different ways. My most recent is keeping it in its own container. It still spreads. So just give it its own container. Thai basil, if you've never had it or don't eat food, it has a very light cinnamony taste to it. It's delicious. Licorice, that's who said that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Thai basil,
licorice.
licorice.
Yeah, it's fabulous. I'm trying to grow some from seed right now, but I'm not having a whole lot of luck, so we'll find out. Okay, so this is Urban Harvest, which is one of the big educational food banks in Houston. And it basically says the same thing, but a little bit more detail. So I did leave out, we're going to come back to tomatoes. This is reminding me about that. Okay, so, and really I'm a big herb person because it has so much to do with companion gardening, but you'll have to come to my next talk on that one. So tomatoes. I really think that it's great to grow them inside under grow lights so that they're ready for the garden. And I don't know if I mentioned this or I just was talking to somebody else, but our big issue with tomatoes is getting them really growing, putting on a lot of leaves so that they can put out their fruit before the heat of summer comes. That doesn't necessarily, let me back up. Does everybody know the difference in tomatoes between determinate, indeterminate, heirloom? No. Okay. Determinates are the ones that grow and put on their fruit and harvest very quickly, usually before the beginning, middle of July. You can nurture it until all the way through the winter time, all the way to fall, but most people pull them out. What's great about determinants is that if you are a canner or wanting to learn how to can, this is the tomato plant all different sizes, that put most of their harvest on at one time. So it makes it easier for canning. Because if you're really going to get into canning, sometimes that can be 15 to 30 pounds, if not more, of tomatoes. Indeterminates are more the vine, the old time, and I'm talking way back in time, thousands of years, that makes the vine. So that's why they're always staked. You can, I suggest also staking determinates because of the weight of the fruit. But the indeterminates will grow very big. Now, what's different between the indeterminate and the determinate tomato is that it grows for a long time, but puts on less fruit. The same amount of fruit, it just takes a long time for it to come out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So instead of getting a determinate, which is also, I didn't say this, is more of an also determined size. Usually they're about 3 to 4 feet. Most of those will go into tomato heaven in July. Indeterminates will grow past that, still putting on fruit. Now, what makes heirlooms special, and everybody's, wants to have an heirloom, is that it's part of the indeterminate family. What makes an heirloom, aside from the way it looks when you slice it open and all the unusual colors and sizes, is that the seed itself has been passed down. We're still growing and eating Thomas Jefferson's tomatoes because their seeds can be saved, and you have to save them properly. It's not about just cleaning out your tomato and letting it dry. You've got to do a few other things. But the seed will produce the same plant again. A determinate or a hybrid indeterminate will not. It will produce a mixture of whatever the parent seeds were. So heirlooms are true to form. And that's what makes them kind of fun. I've had several friends that are farmers or major gardeners that they're still planting the seeds that their great-grandmother had passed down. So I think that's, it's kind of neat. So back to the tomatoes. So when you transplant them, either buy it at the nursery or grow it yourself and transplant it into the garden, be sure to water it in, as in the case with all of these, if you do any transplants. Reason being is that you're getting the air pockets out. Now, tomatoes are heavy feeders, so get yourself on a program of fertilizing. I suggest every 2 weeks. I'm not talking about the time release time. This is just actual fertilization with your hand. Also, if you know the three main categories, that'll kind of give you an idea of what type of tomato you want to grow. If you are in a small place or don't have the landscape, and you're growing in a pot, your larger tomatoes, that might be a problem, but your cherry tomatoes do excellent in containers. They're usually very prolific, and most of them will be able to harvest in the least amount of time in comparison to other tomatoes. So if you have grandchildren, or in my case, you have a spouse that's a few years older than you, but is your child, grow a cherry tomato. So, did anybody have any questions? Because we really rushed through the tomatoes because we didn't have it. Okay. Main thing, just remember, is that they're heavy feeders. I've made that mistake several times. So Larry was awesome and some of the other, we're going to hit very briefly on some herbs as well as your more common insects that are in the garden.
I had a question.
Yes.
Tomatoes. So do you prune, like when the shoots are coming out, do you like if there's a flower and then you snip off them?
Are you talking about the one that comes in between the branches?
Right.
There's, in the, horticultural society, there's conversation about that. Most feel that it is okay, I'm going to get this backwards because I don't do it on either, laid back gardener. But the determinate tomatoes are the ones where you clip the suckers. You've got the natural V branch of the tomato, and it's the little leaf that grows up in the middle. It's not going to put on the fruit. It's going to just flesh out the plant, green-wise. But a lot of people feel that you pluck those not only so it's easier to harvest the tomatoes, but also so that there's better airflow. Whereas the indeterminates or heirlooms, leave them alone because that's the way the plant is. And it does fine with that. So I didn't answer it completely, so it's something definitely to look into, but that's what I've heard.
I heard you say that tomatoes are heavy feeders. So what, like the numbers on the fertilizer would you suggest for feeding tomatoes?
I recommend the fish emulsion, seaweed, for all my plants. But tomatoes, I do plant them, and probably once a month I'll give them a special tomato feeding, But what I meant by that is that unlike the rest of all our vegetables need it, but tomatoes seem to really need it to stay healthy, grow large, and put their fruit on.
So what is the special?
Jody, did you have anything to add to that, to the fertilization of tomatoes?
No, thank you. That's good advice.
What is the special feed, tomato feed you're talking about?
Well, something that's specifically made for tomatoes. I try not to get into that too much because you can get really specific in buying, Vegetables, yes, there's a vegetable fertilizer out there. I think Nelson makes a great one. But there's some that are specific to tomatoes. But generally, I try to keep all my fertilization. This includes my landscape, flowers that I have, because you can spend a lot of money if you try to stay specific, like only feed your roses rose food, only feed your crepe myrtles, crepe myrtle food, your palm trees only palm tree food, all of that. The only thing is with the roses, you do need a little bit more of an acidifier. So it has to be not so alkaline.
Back to tomatoes.
Okay.
How do you differentiate indeterminate and determinate?
Is it by?
It's going to be on the tag or know the name of your plant. But I tell you what, if you have some seeds or something that lasts for okay. But for anybody in the audience who does, and you're like, I have no idea what this is, what tomato plant this is. And if it stays within that range, and it's an organized looking plant of 3 to 4 feet, can't tell you what kind it is until I see the tomato. But it's probably a determinate tomato. I just don't know what variety.
One way, as far as growth habits, you can determine whether it's determined or indeterminate. Is a determinate is a bush plant, bushy plant. Indeterminate is a vine plant. So you can tell by the growth habits. Indeterminate will only grow so high, it'll bush out more. Set most of its fruit, or pretty much all its fruit at one time. Or indeterminate will grow taller and vine out more and continue to produce fruit.
I'm just curious, so is there a list somewhere where if you know the name of the tomato, everything else has been chunked, but so if you know the name of the tomato, you'll be able to say, a Juliet is a determinate or whatever. Is there a list?
I don't know of them, but there probably is one. If Texas A&M, I don't know if they, once you have to delve into the tomato family, and then they may list which are the best ones here.
Okay.
Something like that, because the list can be very long.
Okay.
I worked with tomatoes for most of my career, and one difference you're going to find.
So just hand him the microphone.
One difference you'll find between the indeterminate and determinate plants is that between adjacent flower clusters on an indeterminate plant there are 3 leaves, and between the determinate plants you'll start off with the difference of 2 leaves, and then as you get towards the end, the pattern. So the original pattern is flower cluster, 2 leaves, flower cluster, 2 leaves. As you get towards the end of the branch, it'll go flower cluster, leaf, flower cluster, leaf, flower cluster, end.
Okay, that's
Wow.
The name of all these, if you have the name of a variety and you click online, one of the most important characteristics they will describe is whether or not it's determinate or indeterminate. And there's a lot of gray area because there's such a thing as large determinate and smaller determinate. Some of them have a much more compact body. And
You're
working in
right, I
processing
just didn't wanna
tomatoes,
get into all that
when
with
you're working
everybody.
in processing tomatoes, that becomes incredibly important if you're trying to maintain the plant on a certain bed size.
Yeah, very good, those are excellent points. I'm just not knowing the audience, I kept it very general.
We just looked here 2 weeks ago.
No, I'm saying your knowledge of tomatoes, you know, so for all of you out there who wanna know what plant that you didn't know that you planted, that's some very good information, but I would say that for the beginner, laid back gardener, size. It's a shrub, as I said at the very beginning, it's a shrub versus the true vine. But that is excellent information, and welcome to Texas. So,
I was here before, about 14 years ago. I was piloting, worked on a different crop. I was breeding hybrid rice in Alvin, Texas.
oh.
Then I got a call from the tomato community that needs somebody back in California.
We'll talk to you afterwards, I got a conference for you.
Yeah.
Now I did it again.
Okay.
What's your contact information?
So here we are very briefly, container planting, that's Larry, he's, as you know, the person who made this. So these are all, so look how, so if you want to grow a tomato plant, a regular determinate, indeterminate, not a cherry, you need big pots. And that's all about the root system. So, and you can see how the plants look, but anyway, that's probably his Tatsumi squash, I'm not sure, I can't tell, it's in the background. That is our Henson Larry. Okay, so I'm gonna blow through this. My recommendation is also Larry's, and most people that do a lot of gardening, is to do drip gardening, soaker hose, something that doesn't go way up into the air. Starting out, I get it, because that's what I did, you know. And boy, you just, and then I started finding out how much the percentage of that arc type of sprinkler was putting out in the air, and that I was paying for. So we got down as close as we could to the earth. So you can do this, and this is a great meter. This you could use right in your house. I mean, do I need to water my inside plant? Do you have yourself, a relative, a friend who's a notorious, just thinks so badly of themselves and say they're a brown thumb? Give them a water meter. Then that'll tell them. Or give them a succulent that can go 3 weeks and a month. You know, there's a lot of plants out there. So here's your containers. You know, in general, when it comes to watering, think about your turf, your garden. You're looking at, including rainfall, 1 inch a week. 1 inch of rain or the sprinkler system will soak down, depending on your soil, 4 to 6 inches. And that's something that I've really been talking about with people with grass, because so much of our grass, the watering, you can see it on the sidewalks in the street and stuff like that. It's not so much well, first of all, it's the week. It's the inch. So if you want to break that up into 2 weeks or whatever, because you don't want the roots to stay shallow. You want the roots to go as deep as they can. That is a great healthy lawn if you've got 4 to 6 inch deep roots. Same applies to plants in pots. And if you read this, you can see the different, you know, as far as how the water soaks into, matriculates down into the soil, is due to the type of soil you're using. So, does this make sense to everyone?
Well, we have a question about soaker hoses.
Yeah.
So we did the experiment the other day, turned that soaker hose on for 30 minutes. It only spread from the hose maybe 1 foot each side.
Yeah.
It's 4 or 5 foot wide garden. Is that enough? Or
No, you're gonna have to snake it a little bit. You know, you want, it kind of depends. I mean, if you've got if you've got paths that are supposed to be dry because you don't have anything planted there, then that'll probably work. If you want to, send a picture to the hotline. I just need to see a picture of it.
Did you cover yours with mulch or anything?
Oh, yeah. In fact, sometimes it just depends kind of how long the soaking is going to take place for it to get to the depth that you desire. But I think when you mulch over it, that protects it from you know, squirrels, rats, things that have to keep their canines turned up. I have to fight, I mean, I have a great war going with squirrels into my containers. So I was on KTRH sometime in the fall for spring gardening, fall gardening, plastic forks. And put them tines up. Now the thing, it's not pretty until your plant falls in. This was specifically for a dragon fruit plant that I'm growing. And so when they came to step on it, they couldn't really find a place to step because I left it out of the ground probably about an inch and a half. And so, I forgot what the topic was. What were you just talking about?
You cover the soaker hose.
Yeah, and that keeps them from chewing it. So that's why I brought in the squirrels, because I have a great battle with them, which I'm trying to decide if I like it or not. I really want to kind of get some buckshot out. Okay, so this is a great picture to take up because it'll give you, I don't know if you're working with a balcony of an apartment, a townhome, or just choose to grow in a pot. Because this has some good ideas for the plants.
Again, you're mailing this out now, they're sending out the email and everything, correct?
Right, it'll be about a week or so.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you don't have to take a picture of it, it'll come out. Yeah. And so here we are to mulching. This top varies, that's probably to hold not only the poles together, but maybe also deter some birds. So I don't know if you've got a bird issue. As far as deterring birds, I personally don't think you can do that much because if you put up bird netting, it's a very light, loose, flimsy web, and it's probably, I'm sure they vary in the size of the squares, but the birds get tangled up in it, and they, so then in thrashing, trying to get out, then it just messes it all up. So if you have a really bad, you can do other things. I'm not sure. I've done CDs. I've done little baby Christmas red balls. I've done an owl where the wind spins its head around, But I've done the plastic snake on the ground. Once they know that those are all fake, and then the idea behind the Christmas balls is that they think, they're up there, and they start tapping on them so that when the tomatoes come on and turn red, they think it's not working. Me, I don't leave my tomatoes turning red. I take them into the house. Once they get a blush, like Jody said about the cantaloupe, they ripen on the shelf. And so that way you're protecting them from the birds. Otherwise, plant if you have a bird issue, plant twice as much as you want because they'll only take a few bites out of each tomato on your plants. They won't eat the whole thing. Same with the stupid squirrels. So this is what I want. This is some of our main, it doesn't show the tomato.
Do you mind asking you to go back to the fertilizer one first and the mulch one?
Okay, if I can find it.
So,
okay, this isn't fertilizer, but this is what you want to do. Okay.
So, wood mulch, use nitrogen to decompose. Is that good or not good? It's the second from the bottom.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay.
No, wood so like, you can find those usually bagged in nurseries. At pine wood, something like that. No, they're great. Now, I know I've had some people talk to me just like, well, I'm going to do pine mulch because I'm going to acidify my garden. I heard that was really good to do. And I was like, yeah, if you've got like 150 years. Same thing with pine straw. The only reason I like pine straw, there's several reasons. I grew up not being a fan of pine trees because they weren't fun to run barefoot on. But now, I've changed my mind, not only because it helps acidify, I don't plan on reaping the benefits of it, so I'm thinking planting forward generation-wise. But it doesn't run off so much. If you choose to mulch with it, because of that little groove that's in the leaf, the water finds its way, so it stays. Bark mulch washes off. Big deluge comes down, comes off your roof, it'll wash everything to the edge of your bed, up to the grass. Pine doesn't do that.
Where are you buying the pine from?
You can find it in nurseries, or if you've got a friend in East Texas, or even around here, who's got a pine tree in their backyard. Just go rake it up and farm it. It's awesome. Yeah.
Can I say something about the wood mulch? Microbes use nitrogen to decompose. I think the point there is that putting wood mulch on top of your containers or on top of a bed, either raised bed or garden bed on the ground, is great for suppressing weeds and keeping moisture in. But when it's incorporated into the soil, the microbes consume the wood, break it down, and they consume a lot of nitrogen in the process, so it robs your soil of nitrogen. So when you incorporate it into the soil, it can lower the nitrogen in the soil. So if you incorporate it, say at the end of the season, you mix it in, the wood mulch into the soil, keep in mind that it will reduce nitrogen level in the soil.
Just a brief question about mulch. So for the laid back gardener, for a lot of the gardening services, they'll just say you want black or brown, but as well I worry about the quality. Do we really need to worry about that?
You need to ask him because most likely the black's going to be dyed. It is. You do not want that. I mean, not only will it show up on the cement or wherever, especially if you have a white, you understand, but I'm just saying it for everybody else. Yeah, it's got a dye in it. And that's just aesthetics. That's not saying that if you put a hardy shrub in there, I don't know, Phytonia or something like that in there, it'll probably grow. But don't count on the ornamental flowers doing great.
I have a question about the proper mulch for tomato, pepper, and eggplant. Then, if it's not going to be the wood bark, the bark mulch, what about like hay straw? What is recommended? Can anything touch the skin?
Yeah, straw's great. Hay, be careful because it's got the grass weeds in it. But straw is great. You can do compost, either your own that you've made. And that's interesting because I just found that out probably about 6 months ago, that compost is really low in nitrogen. It's what happens to it under the soil. So that's why you don't really plant. You don't plant in 100% compost. I make my own compost, so I was just like, oh my God, I've got so much. Because it's deficient in some areas. It's what it does once it gets in with the soil, and so it works as a great mulch.
Whatever you use mulch-wise, at the end of the season, is it okay to rototill it in with the soil, or should you break it off?
Oh no, till it in. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of tilling, but I get it. Okay, so back to the bugs. Did anybody else have any other questions regarding mulch? Okay, so here are bugs. These are aphids. I don't know if you can see my finger, but those are the two tailpipes that Larry was talking about. But they're pretty easy to see because they don't run away when you turn the leaf over. You see them all crunched together. And here are some other, so here are the ladybugs eating the aphids. That's the leaf hopper. That's a sucker. That's the one that leaves the little, brown circle spot on your tomato and on other vegetables. Perfectly fine to eat afterwards. You can just kind of slice that part off. These are probably the beginnings, maybe the beginning of the tomato hornworm. I'm not sure. I'm not an entomologist, that's why I'm not sure. And then here you can see the leaf hoppers, or maybe assassin bugs that are on top of peppers. So you can use insecticidal soap. That's a good general one. And those are the nematodes. You're not going to see that. That's under the soil. So if your tomato plant is just not doing great, you haven't seen bugs on it, the leaves are withering, the tomatoes are scrawny if they're forming at all, when you pull it up, you might want to look at the roots. So, as I was saying, insecticidal soap, there's a good general, BT is a good one. What the insecticidal soap does, chances are they're already in your house. But it may not be enough, and you may have to, do more. But it suffocates. It's a surfactant, so it will suffocate the bugs. At least try to. So, so here are the ladybugs. These are aphids. And here are the Yeah, BT's great.
Leaf miners.
Oh, yeah, you might see leaf miners on your, it's hard to see the insect itself. You can see the damage. Most of these will be on your citrus trees. So what it looks like, you've got the green leaf. So number one, leaf miners only attack, usually, if anybody says always or never or whatever in the gardening world, just take it as usually or generally. So on a lemon tree, you'll see this trail that's all through your leaf. What's happening is this leaf miner has been laid by a moth, and it is between the layers of the leaf. That's why it likes young leaves. Now, generally A&M and other universities, if it's a minor infestation, less than a third on your citrus tree, leave it be. I mean, it's not gonna hurt the fruit production at this point. But if you see a large, like almost 90, if not 100%, then you may need to, at this point, I would just take off the leaves and see what happens. It's gonna need, it's hard for it to have chlorophyll without leaves, so I don't know. I've never had one. I've had plenty of citrus trees that have had the infestation and I've left them. But if you want to, you can try neem oil, but it will take multiple applications.
I find pepper plants being more susceptible for leaf.
Oh, okay.
I noticed.
Maybe it's because their leaves stay tender longer. Yeah.
If you don't see the tomato worm on your tomatoes, what's most likely eating the buds off your tomato plants?
What most likely are the buds on the tomato plant?
Yeah, that eats the tomato bud, the plant, the flower.
Oh, that could be aphids.
That could be.
That could be aphids. Now, you would see them.
Yeah, sometimes we'll see all the flowers.
But once the flower's gone, they're gone.
Yeah, and it's like sheared right off at the top.
Okay, so that's not an aphid. That's most likely going to be a good choice. Most likely is that it's the leaf-footed plant.
Okay.
That it's gone in there and it looks like it's shooting,
Yeah.
and that's really what it's doing, is sucking out the juices of the stems. Or a caterpillar.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, we're good. We've got 15 more minutes. So more questions. We've got plenty of time, and if everybody wants to look at the gardens, you can do that.
For the aphids, would you recommend planting or having nearby like a guara or some other kind of plant that is a natural aphid attractor?
A trap plant?
Yeah,
Crop. Yeah. Trap crop.
trap crop.
I definitely believe in it. That's all part of companion gardening. But I'm trying to remember anything. There's more that kind of.
Does that bring more trouble? Are you just asking?
Well, if you do a trap plant, yeah, it might have a tendency to come over here, but it might leave something unprotected over there. I have never really considered aphids a big. I've never had a big problem with them. Yes, I've had them. I'll splash them with the water, and that may take a while. When I mean by a while, it may take multiple times. But or give them a spray of insecticidal soap or something. But they've never bothered me more. It's these other guys, and it's definitely the caterpillars, because we're coming to the season, and just wish I had chickens because they love them. Okay.
Neem oil. So I've always heard that it's be careful using neem oil in the hottest part of the summer, the heat of day. You want to apply it early in the morning, late in the evening. Because over like 90 degrees, you put neem oil on your plants and the burn.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And also, when it comes to anything organic, because people have a tendency to think, oh, the more the better. Oh, this is great. We'll just do orange oil over everything. Snake bites are organic. Ant bites are organic. Bee stings. So keep everything in moderation, even your chemicals, if you choose to go that way.
What about dragonflies? Aren't they?
Well, I've never been stung by a dragonfly.
No, don't they,
eat the predatory?
Yeah, they're a predatory type, but they're more water, so, but you should, you know, it's nice to have a water feature near your garden because all the good plants and the butterflies and the hummingbirds and the pollinators, they need water. So it's not a bad idea. But I just haven't mentioned these because they're out of the scope of what I'm talking about. I love talking about it, so. Any other questions or thoughts, or do you want to review any of the slides?
I have one question on eggplants. So
Question about eggplants.
I had eggplants last year survived, and I kind of pruned them. Now they're flowering very, very well, but those flowers, instead of bearing fruit, they're falling off. What is the cause?
You know, specifically to eggplants, I don't know. But my guess is that it might be low on the second number in your fertilizer, which is, I believe, phosphorus. Because that's bloom health. You've got nitrogen, gets the plant growing, then you've got bloom health, and then the third, and these are macro fertilizers. There might be some other stuff going on in the soil. But the third number usually has to do with helping it be stronger to avoid diseases, pathogens.
It could be that the flowers are not being pollinated because the pollinating
Yes.
insect might not be available.
Yeah. And that seems to happen a lot with squashes, you know, because usually the first, does anybody know how you can tell the difference between a male and a female squash blossom? What, okay, not him.
Why?
So the male is usually the first to show up, and he just does his thing. You've got the stem and then the flower. The female comes a little bit later, so that, whoever asked that question, that was a good, because that makes me think, because they look like they've died. The female comes later, makes the same blossom, but there's an ovum right at the bottom. So stem, little green ball, flower. It's the females that will make, because you can't eat the squash, whatever. So yeah, it's a pollination issue.
I've heard that the leaf-legged bug come in multiples, but there's a beneficial one that when it's just one on the plant, that's the beneficial insect. Is that?
I haven't seen that, I don't know that. That would be a question for our entomology department.
Oh.
I just know that every leaf-footed bug that has landed on my plant, I don't like it.
Yeah, that's
And if it brought friends, it's getting suffocated.
Little handheld vacuum,
Yes.
battery-powered vacuum, suck them off.
Also, just FYI, the leaf-legged works really well with the flick. Man, it goes flying. Yeah, and it's easy. It's a hard body. So,
I have a question. Do you have any advice on chicory, growing chicory?
It's a great cool season crop. But no, nothing unusual that would normally come with mustards, lettuce, spinach. Well, spinach can grow a little bit longer, but nothing, yeah, it's just a little bit harder to find the seed.
I found the seed.
Okay.
They're this big. I just need to know where I should plant them.
They grow to be about this high, I would say, 22 feet wide. I don't know if it has, that's me, I apologize. I don't know if it has a beneficial companion deal, you know, I was thinking like planting them under tomatoes or under an arbor or squash, I don't know about that.
Full sun, under sun?
Oh, full sun. In the heat of summer, it likes a little bit of shade. But for the most part, all of our gardens could take a little bit of shade. I put a shade cloth over my garden come July.
Okay, I have learned that bees and things, I need those to pollinate. And it has fixed a big problem that I had. Now my problem is, when is it too many bees?
They will monitor themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it may be too many for you, but they're still getting the nectar that they want. So they're self-monitoring.
So, with regards to the squash,
with regards to the squash, you know, one plant can have both male and female, correct? And so some of my flowers are falling off. And I'm wondering, you know, I saw Larry in another video where he actually says that, you know, with a Q-tip or something, he is taking the pollen off of one. So would you recommend that I
Oh
start
yeah,
doing that?
it was a great sex class with the ladies who were in the gym. Not my best timing talking about that, because, you know, there's no conjugal visits.
Right.
But, yeah, it works great.
Okay, okay. Well, I was just
You can even
wondering,
use a
because
paintbrush.
I obviously don't have enough bees. I mean, I see one or two, but it's not enough, so.
Remember, a lot of it also happens at night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Not with bees, but with other pollinators. Moths.
Oh.
I don't know if you have bats.
No. Okay.
Just the regular bug crawling across.
Are marigolds a good companion
Yes.
plant?
I get them in now, because they will get all. Or
Seed
tricalendula.
plant? Can I seed it or do I
Mhm.
need?
Yeah, or tricalendula.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you for coming. Oh, I'm sorry, before I get to the end, this is, okay, so I'm trying to get to the end of the file because we're starting a new program that would be very helpful. And it is a QR code if you feel like doing it. Oh, there it is. Just for a second, you know. Lauren was awesome. I'd love to hear her again. It'd be a good comment, you know.
So do we have?
And also thanks to Larry for all. I mean, you can see what I went through that it was didn't cover.
There is, so she had a question about, do we have an entomologist? We do have master gardeners that have specialized training entomologists, so.
Yeah, just contact me or anybody. We've got a team of people on the help desk. FMB, Fort Bend Master Gardeners, MG, at ag.tanu.edu.
I think it might be the next slide.
And some of us may know what it is, but if not, we'll send it. They don't have it. They don't have the entomology told me. Where'd you want
The next slide.
It might have that, yeah.
Yeah, there you
Can you
go.
go back?
Yeah.
Can you go back to the QR code?
In fact, I just got a picture of a beetle that's infesting this man's house.
Can you go to the next slide again?
You want to go back up?
No, to the next one. That one.
So this doesn't have the hotline direct email address. That's the one that I gave you. Most of these are going to soil testing, plant clinic, AgriLife, TA. That's all going to go off to A&M.